Very uncomfortable subject to get into, but it's necessary. Before I do that, though, just a reminder, make sure to subscribe to the Stephen A. Smith channel. Don't forget to click the bell to get notified about the new content that appears there. Thank you very, very much for supporting your show. And a reminder as well, if you have any questions, ask your questions in the chat, and I'll get to them at the end of the show, as I always do. And not only will it be via questions posted on social media or questions that are emailed, but also voice messages are things that I'm going to add along with live calls in the days and weeks to come. So stay tuned for that. The uncomfortable subject that I wanted to get into involved Nazis. Nazis showing up right outside of Disney World. This past Saturday, about 15 people stood outside the entrance to Disney World in Orlando, Florida, and waved flags displaying Nazi insignias. Others gathered displayed messaging in support of Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida. The Orange County Sheriff's Office responded to the demonstration with no arrest and said, quote, "We are aware of these groups that aim to agitate and incite people with anti-Semitic symbols and slurs. The Orange County Sheriff's Office deplores hate speech in any form, but people have the First Amendment right to demonstrate." Lisa Gauze, GAUSC, age 60, told USA Today she and her son were stopped at a red light when she saw the group, which displayed the DeSantis 2024 Make America Florida flag planted in the ground. Gore said, "Good Lord, what is this world coming to? What is Florida? What is America coming to? We don't want this going on." Obviously, representatives for Ron DeSantis, Governor Ron DeSantis, have not responded, according to reports. This comes after numerous moves by DeSantis to disrupt Walt Disney's business, including announcing new legislation to assert control over Disney and suggested that a prison be built nearby. So obviously that's provoked a lot of people to ask the question, could he actually be behind this? I don't know. I'm not going there. Bob Iger's the head of Disney. He can handle it. I know him well. He's my boss. When I'm at Disney for my day job, I happen to think he's one of the greatest executives I've ever seen. Knows what he's doing. And whatever decision he wants to make, he'll make. The other thing that I'd like to say is this, though. Ladies and gentlemen, is Stephen A. fazed by this? No. Comes with the territory. The key line there is from the Orange County Sheriff's Office, who said they deplore hate speech in any form, but acknowledged and reminded us all that people have the First Amendment right to demonstrate. For all intents and purposes, it was a peaceful demonstration. I know that's hard to hear, considering people are out there spewing hate speech. But it was a peaceful demonstration. See, we can't have it always. When folks were protesting in the streets for Black Lives Matter, we had every right to protest. And we did so. And if we're being fair and authentic, some of our protests were not peaceful. I personally believe it wasn't Black Lives Matter. It was people that infiltrated Black Lives Matter to make Black Lives Matter look bad. That's my personal belief. But nevertheless, all the protests were not peaceful. Nevertheless, when you see in Washington, D.C., and you see Black Lives Matter painted on the streets, when you have a right to do those things, people from completely opposite ends of the spectrum are going to exercise their right to do the same. I knew this would happen eventually. I knew it. I didn't suspect it would be at the corridors of Walt Disney World. In Florida, I do find it a bit odd and a bit suspicious, Governor DeSantis. I'll admit that. Because I've been to Walt Disney World several times. Many times. I've brought my children there. I've brought my nieces and nephews there. I never saw that before. But it is what it is. Just a reminder to all of y'all, the Supreme Court has struck down restrictions on hate speech unless it, quote, specifically incites violence or is intended to do so. In other words, if it doesn't specifically incite violence or intends to do so, there's nothing you could say. A recent example of this is when justices defended the right of white supremacists to march with the Nazi flag through Charlottesville, Virginia, in August of 2017. It protected neo-Nazis marching in Skokie, Illinois in 1977. It protected a U.S. flag burner from Texas in 1989. 3 cross burners from Virginia were protected in 2003. And at a funeral where protesters protested against homosexuality in 2011, Supreme Court protected all of that because they said unless it specifically incites violence or was intended to do so, First Amendment rights to free speech makes it legitimate. That is the nation we live in, which is why every action needs to take a reaction into consideration. Every cause, every movement. Folks have theirs, these folks have theirs. And we just got to be adult enough to deal with the fact that me personally, I'm always happy when stuff is crystallized for us. See, it's the proverbial glass ceilings that mess us up, particularly those of us from the minority communities. Because when you don't know and you can't see and you can't envision and it's not there providing tangible evidence as to what is going on, then you're guesstimating. And as a result of that, you're somewhat compromised because there's plausible deniability coming from the other side. Oh, that's not what we intended to do. That's not what we were thinking. That's not what we wanted to happen. We don't know what you're talking about. And they engage in plausible deniability. And because we're devoid of the proof to engage in the level of condemnation we'd like to, there's but so much we can say. But when they do stuff like that, oh, I see who you are. I got you. I got you. I remember I saw this post on social media the other day, and it talked about why do racist groups or somebody like the KKK or something, why are they wearing hoods? And you know what somebody said on social media? Because when you take it off, you'll see that they're doctors and lawyers and police officers and corporate, folks in corporate America, and the list goes on and on. That's what people think. That's how they believe. And so the more stuff is out in the open, the more the lines are drawn in the sand. And we can see. And then we know how to act accordingly. My favorite saying, one of my favorite sayings for anybody that knows me, if we at war, say we at war. I like that. I don't enjoy it. I'm not trying to say it's something that's pleasant or anything like that. I'm just saying that anything that's visibly tangible that you can see and witness for yourself, you have the power to overcome. It's the unknown that bothers most of us, not the known.